Challenge me 1 round, Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Webb shouted, his voice cutting through the gym like a blade. Just 1 round, and we'll see if that trident pin is real or just decoration for a dead woman's daughter. 8 Marine black belts stood behind him, all of them grinning, all of them wrong. Lieutenant Maya Ishikawa stood 5 feet 3 inches tall, 120 pounds, 29 years old. And she was about to dismantle every assumption they'd ever made about women, about size, about what real combat training looked like. Marine Corps Base, Quantico, Virginia. Advanced Combat Training Center. October 15, 2024. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your location in the comments and subscribe now, because what happens next will change how you think about strength forever. The words hit Maya Ishikawa like shrapnel from an IED she'd seen coming from a mile away. She stood just inside the entrance of the Advanced Combat Training Center, her sea bag over one shoulder, taking in the hostile stares of 60 Marines who'd stopped their drills to watch her arrival. The industrial fans overhead pushed hot air around without cooling anything. The smell of rubber mats and decades of sweat hung thick in the space. Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Webb walked toward her, slowly, deliberately, his 7 Marines forming a loose semicircle behind him, like wolves stalking wounded prey. He was 6'2", 210 pounds of muscle, and barely contained aggression with a shaved head and a jaw that looked like it had been carved from granite. "You heard me, Lieutenant." Webb stopped 3 feet in front of her, using his size as psychological warfare. 1 round, full contact. Let's see what the Navy's diversity hire can actually do. Maya's expression didn't change. Her hands stayed loose at her sides. Her weight remained perfectly centered over both feet, the stance of someone perpetually ready for violence. "Diversity hire," she repeated quietly. "That's interesting." "Your mother was Master Chief Sarah Ishikawa," Webb continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the gym. "First female SEAL killed in action. Operation Resolute Strike. Very tragic. Very heroic. The whole military cried about it for weeks." Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. Not anger, she'd learned to control that years ago. Just recognition. She'd known this was coming the moment she received this assignment. "But here's what I'm wondering, ma'am." Webb leaned closer, close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. "Did you actually earn that trident, or did they give it to you because Mommy died and the Navy needed good publicity?" Behind him, Corporal Reyes snickered. Sergeant Morrison crossed his arms and smirked. The message was clear. This wasn't just Webb's opinion. This was the consensus. Master Gunnery Sergeant Raymond Torres appeared from his office, his weathered face tight with concern. He was 47, built like a fire hydrant, with 25 years of service and cauliflower ears that told their own story. "That's enough, Gunny. Stand down immediately." Webb ignored him completely, keeping his eyes locked on Maya. "I'm just asking questions, Master Guns. The lieutenant can answer them, unless she can't." Torres stepped forward. "I said stand down. That's a direct, 'It's fine, Master Gunnery Sergeant.'" Maya's voice was quiet, but it cut through the tension like a blade through silk. Every Marine in the gym turned to stare at her. "Let him talk." Webb's smile widened. "See, she wants to have this conversation. Don't you, ma'am?" Maya set her sea bag down carefully. Slowly. The movement drew every eye in the room. "What I want, Gunnery Sergeant, is to understand something." Her voice remained conversational, almost pleasant. "You've been running this program for 3 years. Your Marines have won 17 inter-service competitions. Your personal hand-to-hand record is 32 wins, 0 losses. You're considered one of the best combat instructors on the East Coast." Webb's chest puffed slightly. You did your homework. I always do. Maya took one step toward him. Just one. But something in that single step made two of his Marines shift their weight backward involuntarily. So, here's my question. With all those accomplishments, with all that skill and experience, why are you so afraid of a 5'3" woman who weighs 120 pounds? The gym went absolutely silent. Webb's smile froze. Afraid I'm not. You challenged me before I even introduced myself. You insulted my dead mother before you asked my name. You brought 7 Marines as backup to confront a single Navy lieutenant. Maya tilted her head slightly. That's not confidence, Gunny. That's fear dressed up in aggression. And honestly, it's a little sad. Someone in the back of the gym made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Webb's face flushed red, his hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Maya thought he might actually swing at her right there, which would have ended his career instantly and solved several of her problems. But he was smarter than that. Angrier, but smarter. You want to talk about fear? His voice dropped to something low and dangerous. Fine. Let's talk about fear. Let's talk about how the Navy puts women through watered-down training so they can check boxes. Let's talk about how your mother, your heroic legendary mother, probably got people killed because she couldn't keep up with the real operators. Maya felt her pulse spike. Just for a moment. Just enough to remind her that she was human, that some wounds never fully healed. My mother saved 11 American lives in Syria, she said quietly. She died covering her teammates' extraction. The after-action report is classified, but I've read it, every word. She killed 4 enemy combatants in close-quarters combat before she took the round that ended her life. 4 men who were trying to execute American hostages. Stories, Webb spat. Propaganda. The Navy Cross they awarded her posthumously isn't propaganda, Gunny. The 11 contractors who are alive today because of what she did aren't propaganda. Maya's voice hardened slightly. And the 4 years I spent in Okinawa training under Master Kenji Yamamoto, the 6 months I spent in Bao DS, the 2 deployments to Iraq and Syria with SEAL Team 3, none of that is propaganda either. She paused. Let the words settle. But you don't want to hear about credentials. You want to see proof. She looked past Webb to his 7 Marines, then swept her gaze across the entire gym. So let's give you proof. Torres stepped forward again. Lieutenant, I strongly advise against 1 round isn't enough. Maya's words stopped him mid-sentence. Webb blinked. What? I said 1 round isn't enough. Maya began rolling up her sleeves, slowly, methodically. You've got 8 black belts standing behind you. I'll fight all 8 of you. Sequential sparring. 2-minute rounds. No breaks between fights. The gym erupted in shocked murmurs. Several Marines laughed outright, not cruel laughter anymore, but the kind of disbelieving sound people made when they witnessed something insane. You're serious? Webb's voice had lost some of its aggression, replaced by genuine confusion. Completely serious. Maya finished rolling her sleeves and looked directly into his eyes. Unless you're afraid. The word hung in the air like a grenade, with the pin pulled. Webb's jaw tightened. His Marines shifted behind him, exchanging glances that ranged from eager to uncertain. You understand what you're asking for, Webb said slowly. Full contact, no protective gear. Real strikes, real submissions. My guys aren't going to go easy on you because you're a woman or an officer. I'm counting on that. You could get seriously hurt. Broken bones, concussion, worse. Maya smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who'd killed 3 men with her bare hands in a collapsed building in Mosul and walked away with nothing but a scar across her palm. Gunnery Sergeant, I've been hurt by people who were actually trying to kill me. Your training exercise doesn't scare me. What scares me is the thought of serving alongside Marines who don't trust me because of assumptions they've never bothered to test. She turned to address the entire gym, raising her voice so everyone could hear. Some of you think I don't belong here. Some of you think my mother's sacrifice is the only reason I wear this uniform. Some of you think women can't fight, can't lead, can't do what needs to be done when the bullets start flying. She paused, making eye contact with as many Marines as she could. I'm going to show you how wrong you are. And when I'm done, we're going to start training together like professionals, because that's what we are. That's what this uniform demands. The silence that followed was different from before. Less hostile. More curious. Torres cleared his throat. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. Referee. Medical on standby. Official rules of engagement. Agreed, Maya said. Webb nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. Tomorrow morning. 800 hours. Right here. I'll be ready. Webb turned and walked away, his Marines following. But Maya noticed something in his gait that hadn't been there before, a slight hesitation, a barely perceptible uncertainty. Good. Doubt was the first crack in any armor. After most of the Marines had filtered out, Torres approached Maya with an expression that mixed concern with something that might have been respect. Lieutenant, can I speak freely? Of course, Master Gunnery Sergeant. What you just did was either the bravest thing I've seen in 25 years of service or the dumbest. He paused. I haven't decided which yet. Maya allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Ask me again tomorrow after the fights. Those men are killers, ma'am. Trained killers. Webb especially, he's got demons I don't think even he understands. Something broke in him a couple years back, and he's been taking it out on everyone around him ever since. I know about Captain Cruz. Torres's eyebrows rose. You know about Diana. I know she was an F-18 pilot. I know she was his fiancée. I know she died in a training accident 2 years ago, and I know Webb blames women in combat roles for her death, even though the accident had nothing to do with gender. How do you know all that? Because I do my homework, Master Gunnery Sergeant. Always. Maya picked up her sea bag. Webb isn't my enemy. His grief is. And you can't fight grief with fists. But you can show someone that the story they've been telling themselves isn't true. She started walking toward the exit, then stopped. One more thing. Ma'am, thank you for trying to stop it. For trying to protect me. She looked back at him. But I didn't come here to be protected. I came here to teach. And sometimes the most important lessons are the ones that hurt. Torres watched her go, shaking his head slowly. Brave or dumb, he thought. Maybe both. Maya's quarters on base were sparse, a bed, a desk, a small bathroom. Military efficiency. She'd lived in worse places. She set her sea bag on the bed and carefully removed the 2 items she carried with her on every assignment. The first was a framed photograph of her mother in dress whites, the Navy SEAL trident gleaming on her chest. Sarah Ishikawa had been 34 in that photo, taken 3 months before her final deployment. She was smiling, not the formal smile of official military portraits, but the real smile she'd reserved for family. The second item was older, more worn. A photograph of Master Kenji Yamamoto in his dojo in Okinawa, demonstrating a kata to a group of students. Maya could just barely make out her own 7-year-old self in the corner of the frame, watching with the intense concentration that would define her entire life. 2 people, 2 teachers, both of them gone now. Maya sat on the edge of the bed and looked at her right palm, tracing the scar that ran diagonally across it. Mosul 2022. A building collapsed during a raid. Her rifle jammed. 3 ISIS fighters came through the dust. She'd killed the first one with a palm strike to the throat that crushed his windpipe, the second with an arm lock that snapped his neck when he tried to pull away. The third had a knife she'd taken the blade across her palm while redirecting it into his own chest. The whole fight lasted maybe 15 seconds. 15 seconds of pure, concentrated violence that she replayed in her dreams at least once a week. Master Yamamoto had trained her for 20 years before that moment. 10,000 repetitions of each technique. 10,000 hours of conditioning her body and mind to react without conscious thought. When the moment comes, he'd always said, "You won't have time to think. Your body will know what to do or it won't." Training is how you make sure it knows. Her body had known. Maya closed her eyes and breathed slowly, centering herself the way she'd been taught since childhood. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let the thoughts come without attachment. Let them pass without judgment. Tomorrow she would fight 8 men who wanted to prove she didn't belong. 8 men who were bigger, stronger, and convinced of their own superiority. They were wrong. And she was going to show them exactly how wrong they were. The call came at 2200 hours, just as Maya was preparing for sleep. "Lieutenant Ishikawa, this is Corporal Jessica Okonkwo. I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am." Maya recognized the name from the unit roster. Young Marine recently assigned, one of only 3 women in the combat training program. "What can I do for you, Corporal?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Okonkwo spoke again, her voice was hesitant. "I heard what happened today. What you said to Gunnery Sergeant Webb. What you agreed to do tomorrow." Word travels fast. "Ma'am, I just wanted to say, I hope you win. I really hope you win." Another pause. "But I also wanted to warn you. Webb's guys have been talking. They're not planning to just beat you. They want to humiliate you, make an example out of you, break something if they can get away with it." Maya's jaw tightened slightly. "I appreciate the warning, Corporal. There's more, ma'am. Corporal Reyes, he's a grappler. Really good. If he gets you on the ground, he's going to try for a neck crank. It's technically legal, but it can cause permanent injury if applied too aggressively." "Yes, ma'am." Maya processed this information calmly. She'd expected something like this, but it was useful to have confirmation. "Corporal Okonkwo, why are you telling me this?" Silence. Then, "Because I've been here for 6 months, ma'am. 6 months of being told I don't belong. 6 months of being passed over for training opportunities because Webb doesn't think women should be in his program. 6 months of watching other female Marines wash out because nobody would give them a fair chance." Her voice hardened slightly. "I'm tired of it, ma'am. I'm tired of being treated like I'm less than just because of what's between my legs. And I'm tired of watching women who worked harder than any of the men get pushed out because the system is rigged against them." Maya heard echoes of her own experience in those words, her mother's experience, the experience of every woman who'd ever tried to serve in roles that men considered their exclusive domain. "What's your rating, Corporal?" "Ma'am." "Your combatives rating." "What level are you?" "Green belt, ma'am." "But I should be brown. I've passed all the requirements twice, and both times Webb found some excuse to deny my promotion." Maya made a mental note. "After tomorrow, that's going to change." "Ma'am, I'm not just here to teach techniques, Corporal. I'm here to fix a broken system. Webb is part of that system, but he's not the disease, he's a symptom. The disease is the belief that combat effectiveness is somehow linked to gender, and I'm going to cure it." There was a sound on the other end that might have been a suppressed sob. "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for fighting." "Don't thank me yet, Corporal. Thank me after I win." Maya ended the call and sat in the darkness for a long time, thinking about broken systems and the people who maintained them. Her mother had faced the same battles, had fought the same fights, had proven herself again and again, only to be doubted again and again. In the end, Sarah Ishikawa had given her life protecting her teammates. And even then, even after the ultimate sacrifice, there were still men like Webb who questioned whether she'd really belonged. Some battles never ended. Some walls had to be torn down brick by brick, generation by generation. But Maya was ready. She'd been ready her whole life. Tomorrow, she would tear down another brick. The morning of the fight dawned gray and overcast. Maya woke at 0500, 2 hours before the scheduled confrontation. She went through her morning routine, methodically stretching breathing exercises, a light breakfast of rice and vegetables. No protein too heavy, no coffee too much stimulant. Just clean fuel for the engine she was about to push to its limits. At 0700, she changed into her training GI. The white fabric was worn soft from years of use, but immaculately clean. Her 4th-degree black belt faded and frayed at the edges from a decade of training wrapped around her waist with the precision that Master Yamamoto had drilled into her since childhood. She looked at herself in the small mirror above her sink. 5'3", 120 pounds. Japanese-American features that had always made people underestimate her. A scar across her right palm that marked the worst and best 15 seconds of her life. "Control and discipline," she whispered to her reflection. "That is the only true way." At 0745, she walked across base toward the Advanced Combat Training Center. Word had spread. Of course it had. The path was lined with Marines heading the same direction, some curious, some hostile, some just looking for entertainment. Maya ignored all of them, focusing on her breathing on the calm center of stillness that Master Yamamoto had taught her to cultivate. The training center was packed when she arrived. Over 150 Marines had crammed into the space, standing along the walls, sitting on equipment filling every available inch of floor that wasn't part of the main mat area. Webb and his 7 Marines were already there, warming up with aggressive pad work. The sound of their strikes echoed off the concrete walls, sharp, powerful, intimidating. Torres met Maya at the entrance, his face grave. "Last chance to back out, Lieutenant. Nobody would blame you." "I would blame me, Master Gunnery Sergeant." He nodded slowly. "Then God help you, and God help them." Maya walked to her corner of the mat and began her own warm-up. No pad work, no aggressive displays, just slow, controlled stretches. Breathing exercises, the same routine she'd done 10,000 times before. The crowd murmured. Some laughed. They saw a small woman doing gentle stretches while 8 killers prepared to destroy her. They didn't understand. They couldn't understand. Those gentle stretches were loading a weapon they'd never seen before. At exactly 0800, the referee, a Marine major named Collins, who'd been brought in specifically to ensure fairness, stepped onto the center of the mat. "Listen up." His voice cut through the noise. "We're here to conduct an official combatives assessment. 8 sequential rounds, 2 minutes each. Full contact. Fight ends on tap-out referee stoppage or clear dominant position held for 5 seconds. Medical is standing by." He looked at Webb, then at Maya. "Any questions?" Neither spoke. "Then let's begin. First fighter step onto the mat." Webb stepped forward. Of course he would go first. He wanted to end this quickly, personally, decisively. Maya stepped forward to meet him. They stood facing each other at the center of the mat. Webb towered over her by nearly a foot, outweighed her by 90 pounds. His hands were the size of dinner plates. His reach advantage was almost comical. "Last chance to apologize and walk away," he said quietly, low enough that only she could hear. I'll tell everyone you came to your senses. No shame. Maya looked up at him, into the eyes of a man carrying 2 years of grief and rage, looking for someone to blame, someone to hurt. Your fiancé would be ashamed of who you've become, she said just as quietly. Diana deserved better than this. Webb's face went white, then red. His whole body tensed like a coiled spring. The referee gave the signal. Fight! Webb exploded forward. He threw an overhand right with every ounce of his 210 pounds behind it, a knockout punch that had ended dozens of fights that had never failed to connect when he wanted it to. It missed Maya's face by half an inch. She was already moving, already inside his guard, already past the reach of his power. Her palm heel struck his solar plexus with precision that came from 20 years of training. Not hard enough to injure, just hard enough to interrupt his breathing pattern, to shock his nervous system, to make him realize that everything he thought he knew was wrong. Webb staggered backward, his eyes wide. He'd never been hit like that, never by someone he outweighed by nearly double. The crowd went silent. Maya didn't press her advantage. She returned to her starting position, hands loose at her sides, breathing calm and steady. Again, she said quietly. Webb's face twisted with rage. He came in faster this time, smarter jab cross, low kick, trying to use his reach and speed to overwhelm her. Maya read every strike like he was moving in slow motion. She'd seen this pattern 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Webb was strong, was fast, was skilled, but he was also predictable. She blocked the jab, slipped the cross, checked the kick with her shin. And in the fraction of a second when his weight was committed and his balance was compromised, she stepped in with a spinning back fist that caught him flush on the jaw. His head snapped sideways. His knees buckled. The crowd gasped. Webb caught himself before he fell, but the damage was done. Everyone had seen it. Everyone knew. This small woman had just rocked one of the best fighters on the East Coast. The rest of the round became a clinic. Maya controlled distance with footwork that looked like dancing. She picked apart his defense with strikes to nerve clusters and pressure points that left him wincing and uncertain. She never overcommitted, never gave him an opening, never let her emotions override her training. When the 2-minute buzzer sounded, Webb was breathing hard, favoring his left side, his face a mask of confusion and barely controlled panic. He walked off the mat without a word. Maya stood perfectly still, barely winded, watching the next fighter step forward. Corporal Reyes, the grappler, the one who would try for the neck crank. She remembered Okonkwo's warning. She was ready. Round 2, the referee announced. Fight! Reyes shot for her legs, immediately going for a double leg takedown that would put her on her back, where his weight and ground skills would be overwhelming. Maya sprawled perfectly, hips back, weight down, legs, sprawling wide to deny him any grip. It was a basic defense, but the execution was flawless. Reyes tried to adjust to shift to a single leg, and that was his mistake. Maya's arm snaked around his neck before he realized what was happening. Guillotine choke. Textbook. Perfect. He tried to posture up to create space, but she had hooks in. Her legs wrapped around his torso, her arm like an iron bar across his throat. His face started turning purple. For a moment, just a moment, Maya considered holding the choke longer than necessary, considered giving him a taste of the humiliation he'd planned for her. But that wasn't who she was. That wasn't what Master Yamamoto had taught her. Control and discipline. The moment Reyes tapped, she released him completely. Clean. Professional. He rolled away, gasping, staring at her with an expression she'd seen before. Respect. Reluctant, unwilling, but respect nonetheless. Round 3. Sergeant Morrison stepped onto the mat. He was a striker ranger than the others, with good reach and footwork. He lasted the full 2 minutes, but landed nothing clean. Maya controlled him like a puppeteer, controlling a marionette, always one step ahead, always positioned perfectly, always making him pay for every mistake. The crowd had stopped laughing, stopped making crude comments. They were watching in silence now, watching something they'd never seen before. Round 4. Corporal Jackson. MMA background. Most technical fighter yet. He came in smart patient, looking for openings, respecting her speed and precision. They exchanged in flurries jab counter reset. Jab counter reset. Maya felt the first twinges of fatigue in her legs, felt her knee, the one she'd hyperextended in Yemen, starting to protest. But her technique held. 20 years of training didn't disappear because you were tired. Jackson never found his opening. The round ended with him frustrated, and Maya still standing strong. Round 5. Staff Sergeant Williams, 240 pounds, former collegiate wrestler. The biggest physical threat yet. He got her down. He achieved mount. For 3 eternal seconds, the crowd held its breath, waiting for the end. But Maya didn't panic, didn't freeze, didn't make the mistake that fear wanted her to make. She bumped, shrimped, created space. Williams tried to advance to a submission, overcommitted, and Maya reversed him with a sweep that would have made Master Yamamoto proud. From top position, she locked in a kimura that bent his shoulder to the breaking point. He tapped. Immediately. 5 down, 3 to go. Maya stood slowly. Her knee was screaming now. Her lungs burned. Sweat soaked through her gi. But she was still standing. She was still fighting. And the Marines who had come to watch her humiliation were witnessing something else entirely. They were witnessing a demonstration of what discipline really meant, what training really accomplished, what it looked like when someone small and underestimated refused to be defined by other people's limitations. The 6th fighter stepped onto the mat, then the 7th, then the 8th. And through it all, through the exhaustion and the pain and the relentless pressure, Lieutenant Maya Ishikawa remained standing. When the final buzzer sounded and the last Marine walked off the mat, nursing his injuries, Maya stood alone in the center. 8 fights, 8 victories, 0 doubts remaining. She turned to face Webb, who stood at the edge of the mat with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Still think I'm a diversity hire gunnery sergeant?" He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. But somewhere in his eyes, behind the humiliation and the rage and the grief he'd been carrying for 2 years, Maya saw something shift. Something that might, just might, be the beginning of understanding. The silence lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then Master Gunnery Sergeant Torres stepped onto the mat, his voice cutting through the stunned atmosphere like a blade through fog. "Gunnery Sergeant Webb, front and center. Now!" Webb walked slowly toward the center of the mat, each step heavier than the last. His jaw was tight. His hands hung at his sides like they belonged to someone else. Behind him, his 7 Marines sat in various states of defeat, some nursing bruised ribs, others rubbing sore joints, all of them staring at Maya with expressions that had transformed completely from contempt to something approaching awe. Torres positioned himself between Webb and Maya, his weathered face carved from stone. "In 25 years of service," Torres said, his voice carrying to every corner of the packed gym, "I have never witnessed a more disgraceful display of conduct unbecoming. You challenged a superior officer's competence publicly. You insulted her mother's sacrifice. You created a hostile environment designed to humiliate and intimidate." Webb said nothing. His eyes remained fixed on some point past Torres's shoulder. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you, Gunnery Sergeant." Webb's gaze snapped to Torres's face. Something flickered there, not defiance anymore, but something raw, something broken. You have one chance to explain yourself before I recommend you for formal disciplinary proceedings. One chance. Choose your words carefully." The gym held its collective breath. 150 Marines waited to see what Webb would say, what excuse he would offer, what justification he could possibly construct. Webb's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I was wrong." The words came out hoarse, barely audible. Torres leaned forward. "Louder gunnery, Sergeant. Everyone here deserves to hear this." Webb's chest expanded with a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice carried across the entire facility. "I was wrong, Master Gunnery Sergeant, about Lieutenant Ishikawa, about her capabilities, about her right to be here." He paused, and Maya saw his throat work as he swallowed something that might have been pride. "I apologize for my conduct." Torres nodded once sharply. "That apology isn't mine to accept or reject. It belongs to the lieutenant." Webb turned to face Maya directly for the first time since his defeat. Their eyes met, and Maya saw the full weight of what was happening behind his gaze. This wasn't just about losing a fight. This was about having his entire world view dismantled in front of everyone who respected him. "Lieutenant Ishikawa." His voice cracked slightly on her name. "I apologize. You earned your place. You proved it. He stopped, started again. "I was looking for someone to blame. You didn't deserve that." Maya studied him for a long moment. The gym was so quiet she could hear the industrial fans humming overhead, could hear someone's watch ticking 3 rows back in the crowd. "I don't need your apology, Gunnery Sergeant." Webb flinched like she'd struck him again. "What I need," Maya continued, her voice steady but carrying clearly, "is for you to understand something fundamental about why you're standing here feeling the way you feel right now." She took one step toward him. Just one. But in that single step, something shifted in the space between them. "You think you lost because I'm faster than you, because I have better technique, because I trained harder or longer or smarter." She shook her head slowly. "That's not why you lost." Webb's brow furrowed. "Then why?" "You lost because you walked onto this mat carrying 2 years of grief and rage that had nothing to do with me. You lost because you were fighting a ghost instead of an opponent. You lost because every time you looked at me, you saw something that reminded you of the worst day of your life." The color drained from Webb's face. "Diana Cruz," Maya said quietly. "F-18 pilot, your fiancée. She died in a training accident 2 years ago, 3 weeks before your wedding." Webb's whole body went rigid. "How do you know that name?" "Because I do my homework, Gunnery Sergeant. Because when I received this assignment, I studied every person I'd be working with, including you." Maya's voice softened slightly, not with pity, but with understanding. "I know she was the love of your life. I can know you visited her grave every Sunday morning for 2 years without missing a single week. I know the official report cited mechanical failure, and I know you've convinced yourself that wasn't the real reason." "Stop." Webb's voice was barely a whisper. "Please stop. You blamed women in combat. You told yourself that standards had been lowered, that Diana was pushed through training too fast, that she died because the military cared more about diversity than competence." Maya paused. "None of that is true. You don't know. I've read the incident report, all of it, the classified sections too." Maya held his gaze without flinching. "Diana Cruz died because a hydraulic line failed at 30,000 feet during a night training exercise. The line was manufactured with a defect that passed 3 separate quality inspections. It had nothing to do with her gender, her training, or anyone's politics. It was mechanical failure. Pure and simple. Webb's composure cracked. His eyes glistened. His jaw trembled with the effort of holding back something enormous. "She was the best pilot I ever met," he said, his voice breaking. "Better than me. Better than anyone. And they took her and nobody could explain why, and I needed it to mean something. I needed someone to blame because blaming God wasn't working anymore." Maya felt her own throat tighten. She understood grief. She understood the desperate need to make senseless loss make sense. "I know," she said softly. "I lost my mother the same way. Not the same circumstances, but the same hole. The same need to fill it with something, even if that something was anger." Webb looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since she'd arrived at Quantico. "How do you survive it?" he asked. "How do you get up every day and do this job knowing they're gone and nothing you do will bring them back? You honor them, not by trading on their names or their sacrifices, but by becoming the kind of person they believed you could be." Maya gestured toward the Marines, watching in silence. "Diana wouldn't want you destroying yourself with hatred. She wouldn't want you tearing down other women to avenge something that wasn't anyone's fault. Then what would she want? She'd want you to teach, to mentor, to help the next generation of pilots, male and female, become the best versions of themselves." Maya paused. "She'd want you to live, Marcus. Really live. Not just exist inside this shell of anger you've built around yourself." The use of his first name hit Webb like a physical blow. No one had called him Marcus in years. Not since Diana. "I don't know how," he admitted. "I don't know how to be anything else anymore." "Then let me help you learn." Webb stared at her. "After everything I said, everything I did, you'd help me. Fighting you wasn't about proving I belonged. It was about proving that competence transcends gender, size, background, all the things people use to limit each other." Maya extended her hand. "I didn't come here to make enemies, Gunnery Sergeant. I came here to make Marines better. All Marines, including you." Webb looked at her hand like it might be a trap, like accepting it might mean admitting things he wasn't ready to admit. Then slowly he reached out and took it. "I don't deserve this," he said quietly. "Probably not, but that's not the point." Maya shook his hand firmly. "The point is what you do next. The point is whether today is the end of something or the beginning." Torres cleared his throat. Both of them turned to face him. "Lieutenant, what you just did here, the fighting and everything after that's going to be talked about on this base for years. Decades, maybe." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've seen a lot of officers in my time. Good ones. Bad ones. Everything in between. What I haven't seen very often is someone who could beat 8 opponents in a row and then extend grace to the man who tried to humiliate her." Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I did what needed to be done, Master Gunnery Sergeant. Nothing more." "That's exactly what makes it impressive." Torres turned to address the assembled Marines. "What you witnessed today wasn't just a physical demonstration. It was a lesson in what real leadership looks like. Lieutenant Ishikawa had every right to demand disciplinary action against Gunnery Sergeant Webb. Every right to destroy his career. Instead, she chose to teach him, to help him understand." He swept his gaze across the crowd. "That's the standard I expect from every person in this program going forward. We train hard, we fight hard, but we also take care of each other. Is that clear?" "Clear, Master Gunnery Sergeant." The response came from 150 throats simultaneously. Torres nodded. "Training resumes Monday at 0600. Lieutenant Ishikawa will be your primary instructor. Gunnery Sergeant Webb will be her assistant. Dismissed." The Marines began filing out slowly, buzzing with conversation. Several of them approached Maya to shake her hand or offer congratulations. She accepted each greeting with a nod and a word of thanks, neither encouraging nor discouraging the attention. When most of the gym had emptied, Corporal Okonkwo approached hesitantly. The young female Marine who'd warned Maya about Reyes's neck crank. The one who'd been denied her brown belt twice. "Ma'am, can I talk to you for a second?" "Of course, Corporal." Okonkwo glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "What you did today? I've never seen anything like it. I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know someone like me could—" She trailed off, struggling to find words. "Could what? Could win against all of that?" She gestured vaguely at the mat, at the space where 8 Marines had fallen. "I've been fighting my whole life. Fighting to be taken seriously. Fighting to earn what men get handed to them. And most of the time I lose. Not the physical fights, the other kind. The kind where they make you feel like you don't belong no matter what you do." Maya felt something twist in her chest. How many times had she felt exactly the same thing? How many times had her mother described the same exhaustion? "Corporal, I'm going to tell you something my mother told me before her last deployment." Maya waited until Okonkwo met her eyes. She said that being a woman in combat isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's not about being as good as men or better than men or anything to do with men at all. It's about being the best version of yourself. Period. But how do you keep going when nobody believes in you? You find people who do. You build a network. You support each other. Maya paused. And you remember that the people doubting you have usually never done what you're trying to do. Their opinions are based on fear, not facts. Okonkwo nodded slowly, absorbing the words. Then her expression shifted to something more vulnerable. "Ma'am, there's something else. Something I should have told you last night." "What is it?" "Gunnery Sergeant Webb. He's not the only one with grief issues in this unit." Okonkwo's voice dropped. "Corporal Reyes, the one who tried to neck crank you. His sister was a Marine. Female engagement team in Afghanistan. She got killed by an IED 3 years ago. He's been angry ever since. Angry at women for being in combat, angry at himself for not being there, angry at everything." Maya processed this information. Another broken soldier, another wound dressed up as hostility. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you helped Webb. You didn't just beat him, you reached him. Made him see something he couldn't see before." Okonkwo hesitated. "Reyes needs that too. They all do, maybe. This whole unit is full of people carrying things they don't know how to put down." Maya looked across the nearly empty gym to where Reyes sat alone on a bench, rubbing his throat where her guillotine choke had compressed his airway. He looked lost, defeated in a way that went deeper than physical exhaustion. "Thank you, Corporal, for telling me. Just don't give up on them, ma'am. Even when they're at their worst. Most of them don't know how to be better. Nobody ever showed them." Okonkwo walked away, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts. She'd come here expecting one kind of battle, the kind fought with fists and technique. What she'd found was something far more complex. A unit full of damaged people using aggression to mask pain. A system that had failed them long before she arrived. This wasn't going to be fixed with one demonstration, no matter how dramatic. This was going to take time. Maya walked toward Reyes, slowly giving him plenty of warning that she was approaching. He looked up when she was about 10 feet away, his expression wary. "Come to gloat, ma'am." "No." Maya stopped a few feet in front of him. "I came to ask about your sister." Reyes went very still. "What do you know about my sister?" "Only what I've been told. Female engagement team. Afghanistan. KIA." Maya kept her voice gentle but direct. I'm sorry for your loss. Don't. Reyes's jaw tightened. Don't pretend you understand. I'm not pretending. My mother died in combat. Different circumstances, but the same result. Same hole in my chest that never quite closes. Something flickered in Reyes's eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition. Everyone talks about my sister like she was some kind of symbol, he said quietly. First woman from our hometown to die in Afghanistan. They named a street after her, built a memorial. Politicians came to the funeral and gave speeches about sacrifice and honor. His voice turned bitter. But none of them knew her. None of them knew that she was afraid of spiders but not of Taliban fighters. That she sang Shakira songs off-key when she was happy. That she called me every Sunday night no matter where she was deployed just to make sure I was okay. Maya sat down on the bench next to him. Not close enough to crowd him, but close enough to show she wasn't leaving. What was her name? Maria. Maria Elena Reyes. He said the name like a prayer. She was 2 years older than me, always protecting me even when I didn't want protection. When I enlisted, she was furious, told me the Marines would chew me up and spit me out, told me I wasn't tough enough. Were you? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. No. She was right. She was always right. But she helped me get tough, called me every week of boot camp with advice, encouragement, sometimes just stories to make me laugh. The smile faded. And then she was gone, just like that. One IED, 1 second. 23 years of life erased because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you've been angry ever since. Angry, Reyes laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've been furious. At the Taliban for planting that bomb. At the Marine Corps for sending her into danger. At God for not protecting her. At women in combat for existing because every time I see one, I remember that Maria isn't here anymore. He turned to look at Maya directly. I know it doesn't make sense. I know Maria would hate who I've become. She believed in women serving. She was proud of what she did. And here I am trying to hurt every female Marine I meet because I can't deal with the fact that she's dead, and I couldn't save her. You couldn't have saved her. You don't know that. I do know that, because I've played the same game with myself 1,000 times. If I'd been there, if I'd warned her, if I'd somehow known. Maya shook her head. It doesn't change anything. The guilt, the what-ifs, the bargaining, none of it brings them back. It just destroys the people left behind. Reyes was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. How do you stop? How do you let go of the anger? I'm not sure you ever do completely, but you learn to redirect it, to use it for something productive instead of destructive. Maya stood up. Maria believed in women serving. She died doing what she believed in. You can honor that by helping other women succeed, or you can dishonor it by trying to tear them down. That's your choice. Nobody can make it for you. She started to walk away, then stopped. Corporal Okonkwo has been denied her brown belt twice. From what I can tell, she's earned it both times. When training resumes Monday, I expect that situation to be corrected. Reyes looked up. Ma'am, you're going to help her prepare for her reevaluation. You're going to make sure she's ready. And when she passes, not if, when you're going to be the first person to congratulate her. Maya held his gaze. That's not a request, Corporal. That's an order. She walked away before he could respond, leaving him alone with his thoughts and his ghosts, and the beginning of something that might eventually become healing. Webb was waiting by the exit, his expression uncertain. Lieutenant, can I talk to you? Walk with me. They left the gym together, stepping into afternoon sunlight that felt almost too bright after the artificial harshness of the training facility. I meant what I said in there, Webb began. The apology. It wasn't just for show. I know. And I want you to know what you said about Diana, about her accident. He swallowed hard. I've been telling myself a different story for 2 years, believing things that weren't true because the truth was worse, because mechanical failure is random and meaningless, and I needed someone to blame. Grief does that. It looks for reasons, for patterns, for anything that makes the chaos make sense. Does it ever get easier? Maya thought about her mother, about the photograph on her desk, about the dreams she still had sometimes where Sarah was alive and laughing and everything was okay. Not easier, just different. The hole doesn't close, but you learn to build around it. You learn to carry it without letting it crush you. Webb nodded slowly. They walked in silence for a while. Two people who'd been enemies an hour ago and were now something harder to define. I'm going to be a different person, Webb said finally. A different instructor, a different Marine. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I know it starts with not being who I was. That's all anyone can ask. He stopped walking and turned to face her. Thank you, Lieutenant, for not destroying my career, for giving me a chance I didn't deserve. He extended his hand. I won't waste it. Maya shook his hand. Prove it on Monday. Monday morning came faster than anyone expected. Maya arrived at the training center at 05:30, 30 minutes before the scheduled start. She wanted time to prepare, to center herself, to visualize how this first official day of instruction would unfold. What she found surprised her. Webb was already there, alone, working through forms on the empty mat with a focus she hadn't seen from him before. His movements were different, less aggressive, more controlled, like someone who was trying to relearn something fundamental about how they moved through the world. He stopped when he noticed her watching. Lieutenant, didn't expect you this early. I could say the same. Webb grabbed a towel and wiped his face. Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about everything that happened. Everything that needs to change. He paused. I figured if I was going to be your assistant, I should probably know what I'm talking about. Maya walked onto the mat. Show me what you were working on. It's nothing, just basic forms. Trying to clean up some bad habits. Show me. Webb hesitated, then began moving through a sequence of strikes and blocks. Maya watched closely, noting the tension in his shoulders, the slight overextension in his punches, the way his feet sometimes landed flat instead of staying on the balls. Stop. He froze mid-motion. Your right shoulder drops before every power strike. That's the tell I exploited on Saturday. You've probably been doing it for years without realizing. Webb's jaw tightened. Nobody ever mentioned it before. Nobody ever beat you before. Maya stepped closer. Here, let me show you. She demonstrated the correction, a subtle adjustment to his stance, a different engagement of his core muscles. Webb mimicked her movements, his body stiff with the effort of unlearning something that had become instinct. Better, again. They worked together for 20 minutes before the other Marines started arriving. By the time Torres walked in at 05:45, Webb's shoulders were properly aligned for the first time in probably a decade. Early birds, Torres observed. Good sign. Marines filtered in steadily after that. Maya noticed something different in how they looked at her. Not the open hostility from before, not exactly respect either. Something in between curiosity mixed with wariness, mixed with the kind of attention people paid to things that might be dangerous. She also noticed that Corporal Okonkwo positioned herself near the front of the group, standing taller than Maya had seen her stand before. At exactly 600, Maya stepped to the center of the mat. Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Maya Ishikawa. Starting today, I'll be your primary instructor for advanced close quarters combat. She let her gaze sweep across the assembled Marines. Some of you saw what happened Saturday. Some of you only heard about it. Either way, I want to be clear about something. What happened Saturday wasn't about proving women belong in combat roles. That's already been proven by thousands of women who've served with distinction. Saturday was about establishing that competence matters more than assumptions, that skill matters more than size, that discipline matters more than aggression. She paused. Those principles will guide everything we do in this program going forward. Any questions before we begin? Silence, but not uncomfortable silence. Attentive silence. Good. Let's get to work. The first hour was basics. Maya started from foundational techniques and worked upward, identifying weaknesses in form that had gone uncorrected for years. She adjusted stances, corrected grips, demonstrated proper weight distribution. Small changes that would compound into significant improvements over time. What surprised the Marines wasn't her technical knowledge after Saturday. They expected that. What surprised them was her patience. Her willingness to explain the same concept 5 different ways until it clicked. Her ability to see exactly where each person was struggling and address that specific problem. Webb assisted efficiently, demonstrating techniques when Maya asked, offering encouragement to Marines who were struggling. The transformation in his demeanor was startling to anyone who'd known him before. Less barking, less intimidation, more actual teaching. During a water break, Sergeant Morrison approached Maya cautiously. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead, Sergeant." "That sweep you used on Williams on Saturday, the one from bottom position." Morrison scratched his head. "I've watched the video like 50 times. I can't figure out how you generated that much power from that angle." Maya smiled slightly. "Show me the position." Morrison lay down on the mat, demonstrating the vulnerable position Williams had been in before the reversal. Maya knelt beside him and walked through the technique step by step. The hip movement, the timing, the way she'd used Williams's own momentum against him. "The power doesn't come from strength," she explained. "It comes from leverage and timing. You wait until they commit their weight forward, then you redirect it. Their strength becomes your weapon." Morrison tried the movement several times, his face scrunched with concentration. On the 4th attempt, something clicked. "Holy crap, that's completely different from what I was taught." "What you were taught probably works fine against opponents your own size. This works against anyone." Maya helped him to his feet. "Practice it. A lot. And tell your training partners to actually resist. You don't learn technique against people who are cooperating." Word spread quickly. Within the hour, Maya had lines of Marines waiting to ask about specific moments from Saturday's fights. She found herself demonstrating the same concepts over and over, not because the Marines were slow, but because what she was teaching challenged everything they'd learned about combat being a contest of strength and aggression. At 0900, she called everyone back to formation. "What we've covered this morning is foundation. The next phase is application." She gestured for Webb to join her at the center of the mat. "Gunnery Sergeant Webb is going to demonstrate a common attack pattern. I want all of you to watch carefully and identify the vulnerability." Webb moved into a fighting stance. Maya could see the subtle changes in his position, the corrected shoulder alignment, the better weight distribution. He was already implementing what she'd shown him before class. "Attack when ready," Maya said. Webb came in with a jab cross-kick combination, the same sequence he'd used on Saturday, but cleaner now, more controlled. Maya slipped and countered, stopping her strike an inch from his throat. "What did you see?" she asked the group. Silence. "Anybody?" Okonkwo raised her hand hesitantly. "His elbow flared on the cross, ma'am, created an opening on his center line." Maya nodded. "Exactly. Corporal Okonkwo, come demonstrate the counter." Okonkwo stepped forward, her nervousness visible but contained. Webb reset to his starting position. When you see that flared elbow, you have about half a second to exploit it. Show me. Webb attacked. Okonkwo slipped the jab saw the flared elbow on the cross and stepped inside with a textbook counterstrike that stopped just short of Webb's solar plexus. Good. Reset again. They drilled the sequence 5 more times. Each repetition was cleaner than the last. By the final attempt, Okonkwo was moving with a confidence Maya hadn't seen from her before. Excellent work, Corporal. Maya turned to the group. That's what we're building toward. The ability to see opportunities that others miss, and the skill to exploit them instantly. Break into pairs. Practice what you just saw. The training floor erupted into organized chaos. Marines paired off and started drilling their movements, gradually becoming sharper as they internalized the new concepts. Maya circulated through the groups, offering corrections and encouragement. She noticed Reyes working with a younger Marine, patiently walking through the technique instead of simply overpowering his partner. When she passed close to him, he spoke without looking at her. I talked to Corporal Okonkwo this morning about her brown belt evaluation. And she's scheduled for Thursday. I'm going to help her prepare every day until then. He finally met her eyes. Like you ordered. Like I ordered, Maya agreed. But she saw something in his expression that suggested it wasn't entirely about following orders anymore. At 1100, Maya called an end to the morning session. Marines filed out for lunch, most of them moving more stiffly than they had that morning. Good soreness, the kind that meant they'd actually worked. Webb approached as the gym emptied. That was the best training session I've seen in 3 years at this facility. It was foundation. The real work starts tomorrow. That's not what I mean. Webb hesitated. The way you teach, it's different. You don't just show people what to do. You show them why. You make them understand the principles behind the techniques. That's how I was taught. My sensei used to say that memorizing moves is useless. Understanding movement is everything. Your sensei sounds like a wise man. He was. Maya felt the familiar ache that came with remembering Master Yamamoto. He died 2 years ago, 91 years old, still teaching 5 days a week, right up until the end. I'm sorry. Don't be. He lived exactly the life he wanted to live, taught exactly the way he wanted to teach, died at peace with everything he'd accomplished. She paused. Not many people can say that. Webb was quiet for a moment. Diana would have liked you. She had the same clarity, the same sense of knowing exactly who she was and what mattered. Tell me about her. The question surprised him. What do you want to know? Anything, everything, whatever you're willing to share. They walked together toward the exit, Webb's voice gradually loosening as he talked about the woman he'd loved. How they'd met at a naval aviation conference, how she'd beaten him at pool 3 times in a row and then asked if he wanted to buy her dinner. How she'd made him believe that marriage and military service could coexist, that happiness was possible even in the chaos of deployment schedules and career demands. Maya listened without interrupting. She understood that Webb needed to say these things out loud, not to her specifically, but to someone. Anyone who would hear Diana's name and remember she'd been real. She sounds extraordinary, Maya said when he finally fell silent. She was. God, she was. Webb's voice caught. And I've spent 2 years trying to destroy everything she believed in because I couldn't handle losing her. You're not destroying anything now. No, thanks to you. He stopped walking and faced her. I want to do something, to honor her properly, but I don't know what. Maya considered for a moment. You said she believed in women serving, that she would have been ashamed of who you became. Yes. then maybe the best way to honor her is to become someone she would have been proud of. Someone who lifts up the women in this program instead of tearing them down. How mentor them, advocate for them, fight for their promotions when they've earned them and their recognition when they deserve it. Maya paused. Start with Corporal Okonkwo. She's been passed over twice for advancement she earned. Make sure it doesn't happen a third time. Webb nodded slowly. I can do that. Then do it. Not for me. Not even for Diana, really. Do it because it's right. Because you're capable of being better than you've been. They parted ways at the entrance to the officer quarters. Maya walked to her room alone, feeling the weight of the morning settling into her bones. She'd expected resistance. She'd expected hostility. She'd even expected the challenge that had led to Saturday's confrontation. What she hadn't expected was how quickly things could shift when people were given permission to be different. How hungry some of them were for someone to show them another way. Her phone buzzed. A text from Torres. Colonel Phillips wants to see you. His office 1400. Don't be late. Colonel Marcus Phillips was the commanding officer of the Advanced Combat Training Command at Quantico. Maya had seen his name on documents, but never met him in person. Being summoned to his office could mean many things. Recognition for Saturday's events. Censure for the same. Questions about her methods, or her plans, or her qualifications. Maya showered, changed into a fresh uniform, and reported to the administrative building at exactly 13:55. Phillips's aide showed her into an office lined with photographs and commendations. The colonel himself was shorter than she'd expected, 5'8" maybe, with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Lieutenant Ishikawa, sit down. Maya sat. Phillips studied her for a long moment. His expression gave nothing away. I've spent the last 3 days dealing with the fallout from your little demonstration on Saturday. Reports from Torres, incident documentation, medical evaluations on 8 Marines with various contusions and bruised egos. Sir, I'm not finished. Phillips leaned forward. I've also received 17 requests from other units asking if you're available to conduct training sessions. I've had 3 generals call me personally to ask about what happened and whether it can be replicated. And I've got one very confused Marine Corps commandant who wants to know how a 5'3" Navy lieutenant managed to defeat 8 of our best hand-to-hand fighters in sequential combat. Maya remained silent. So, here's my question, Lieutenant. Phillips's eyes narrowed. What exactly are you, and what exactly are you doing in my command? Sir, I'm a Navy SEAL officer with specialized training in traditional martial arts. I was assigned here to improve the close-quarters combat capabilities of Marine personnel. That's what your orders say. I'm asking what you are. Maya considered her response carefully. I'm someone who's been training since I was 5 years old. Someone who learned from masters who dedicated their entire lives to perfecting these techniques. And I'm someone who believes that what I know can make Marines more effective in combat. By humiliating them, by showing them that their assumptions are wrong, by demonstrating that technique and discipline can overcome advantages in size and strength. Maya met his gaze directly. With respect, sir, no one was humiliated on Saturday. They were educated. There's a difference. Phillips's expression shifted slightly. Not quite a smile, but something close to it. Master Gunnery Sergeant Torres has been in this command for 12 years. He's seen hundreds of officers come through. And he told me this morning that you're the most natural instructor he's ever observed. Phillips leaned back in his chair. He also told me that Gunnery Sergeant Webb, who has been a problem child since his fiancée's death, is already showing signs of significant behavioral improvement. After 1 day of working with you. Webb is a good Marine who was carrying too much grief, sir. He needed someone to show him a different way. And you showed him. I tried, sir. Whether it sticks remains to be seen. Phillips stood up and walked to the window. For a long moment, he just looked out at the training grounds below. "Lieutenant, I'm going to tell you something that doesn't leave this room." "Yes, sir." "There's a review being conducted at the Pentagon level, looking at gender integration in combat roles, looking at whether women should continue serving in positions like the one you hold." He turned to face her. "There are powerful people who want to roll back the progress of the last decade, who want to return to the days when combat was exclusively male domain." Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. "I wasn't aware of that, sir." "No reason you would be. It's being done quietly. Committees and studies and recommendation reports. The kind of bureaucratic warfare that never makes headlines but changes everything." Phillips walked back to his desk. "What happened on Saturday? That's exactly the kind of evidence they don't want to exist. Concrete, undeniable proof that a woman can outfight men who outweigh her by 50 to 90 pounds. What do you need from me, sir? I need you to keep doing what you're doing. Train these Marines. Document your methods. Build a record of success that's so overwhelming it can't be dismissed or ignored." Phillips sat down heavily. "And I need you to understand that not everyone at this base or in this military is going to be happy about it. You've made enemies you don't even know about yet." Maya processed this information. "Sir, with respect, I've been making enemies like that my entire career. My mother made them before me. We don't serve to be popular. We serve to be effective." "Your mother." Phillips's expression softened slightly. "I knew Sarah Ishikawa. Served with her briefly during joint operations in 2018. She was one of the finest operators I ever met." "Thank you, sir. She would be proud of what you did Saturday, and what you're building here." Phillips stood signaling the meeting was ending. "Keep building it, Lieutenant. Build it so well they can't tear it down. That's an order." Maya stood and saluted. "Understood, sir." She was halfway to the door when Phillips spoke again. "Lieutenant," she turned. "The Marines you fought Saturday, the ones watching, the ones who've spent years believing certain things about women in combat." His voice was quieter now. "You changed some minds. Not all of them, some people will never change. But some of them saw something they'd never seen before, and they're never going to be able to unsee it. That matters. That matters more than you know." Maya nodded once. "I'll remember that, sir." She walked out of his office carrying the weight of everything he'd told her. Somewhere in the Pentagon, people were trying to erase everything she and her mother and thousands of other women had sacrificed to achieve. Trying to return to a world where capability was measured in pounds and testosterone instead of skill and courage. They would fail. Maya would make sure of it. Not through politics or protests or angry speeches, but through the only method that had ever really mattered, undeniable, irrefutable performance. She would train these Marines until they were the most lethal hand-to-hand fighters in the entire military. She would document every technique, every improvement, every moment of progress. She would build something so solid that no committee or study or recommendation report could tear it down. And when the reviewers came looking for evidence that women didn't belong in combat, they would find exactly the opposite. They would find Maya Ishikawa. And they would learn, just like everyone else, exactly how wrong their assumptions had been. Thursday arrived with the weight of everything riding on it. Corporal Jessica Okonkwo stood at the edge of the training mat, her hands trembling slightly at her sides. In 20 minutes, she would face her brown belt evaluation for the third time. Twice before, she'd passed every requirement only to be denied advancement on technicalities that existed nowhere in the official standards. This time would be different. Maya watched from across the gym as Reyes ran Okonkwo through final preparations. His approach had transformed completely over the past 3 days, patient, encouraging, focused entirely on her success rather than his own ego. "Remember your breathing," Reyes said quietly. "When they pressure, you don't speed up. Stay in your rhythm. What if I freeze? What if I forget everything? You won't. You've done this 1,000 times. Your body knows what to do." Reyes put his hands on her shoulders. "My sister Maria used to tell me something before every evaluation. She'd say that fear is just excitement that forgot to breathe. So breathe. And be excited instead of scared." Okonkwo's eyes glistened. "Thank you for everything this week. Don't thank me yet. Thank me after you pass." Webb appeared beside Maya, his voice low. "The evaluation board just arrived. 3 members. And we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Master Sergeant Hendricks is leading it." Maya's jaw tightened. She knew that name. Ronald Hendricks, 15 years in the Corps legendary hand-to-hand instructor and one of the most vocal opponents of women in combat roles. He'd written 3 separate papers arguing that female Marines should be restricted to support positions, and his evaluation boards had a documented pattern of failing women at disproportionate rates. "Did you know he was coming?" "No, this wasn't on the original roster. Someone changed it at the last minute." Maya felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. Colonel Phillips had warned her about powerful people who wanted to roll back progress, about enemies she didn't know she had. "They're trying to set her up to fail." "That's what I'm thinking." Webb's hands clenched. "What do? We make sure she doesn't fail. We make sure she's so good they can't justify denying her. And if they deny her anyway..." Maya's eyes hardened. "Then we fight, but not until we have to." The evaluation board assembled at the head of the mat. Hendricks was exactly what Maya expected, mid-50s, built like a tank, with a face that seemed permanently set in disapproval. The 2 junior evaluators flanking him kept their expressions carefully neutral. Torres stood nearby, his weathered face revealing nothing. But Maya caught the slight tension in his shoulders. He knew what was happening too. "Corporal Okonkwo," Hendricks announced, his voice carrying across the silent gym. "Step forward for brown belt evaluation." Okonkwo walked to the center of the mat. Her trembling had stopped. Something had settled in her expression, determination replacing fear. "This evaluation will consist of 3 phases," Hendricks continued. "Technical demonstration, sparring assessment, and situational application. Passing requires satisfactory performance in all 3 areas." He paused. "Any questions before we begin?" "No, Master Sergeant." "Then let's see what you've got." The technical demonstration came first. Okonkwo moved through required techniques with precision that made Maya proud. Strikes, blocks, joint locks, throws, all executed with textbook form and appropriate power. Every motion clean. Every transition smooth. The junior evaluators made notes. Hendricks watched with an expression that gave nothing away. "Acceptable," he said when she finished. "Sparring assessment. 3 rounds, 2 minutes each against opponents of evaluators' choosing." He pointed at the largest Marine in the gym, a staff sergeant named Kowalski, who stood 6'4" and weighed at least 240. "Staff Sergeant Kowalski, you're first." Maya felt her stomach drop. This wasn't standard protocol. Brown belt evaluations typically matched candidates against similar-sized opponents, not fighters with 100-pound advantages. But Okonkwo didn't hesitate. She moved to the center of the mat and adopted her fighting stance. Kowalski came in carefully respectful enough not to immediately crush her, but clearly intent on demonstrating the size differential. He threw a jab. Okonkwo slipped it cleanly. He threw another. She parried and countered with a quick combination to his body. The exchange continued. Kowalski pressed forward using his reach and weight to control space. Okonkwo circled used angles, made him pay for every overcommitment. She wasn't winning. Nobody her size could win against someone like Kowalski in a straight fight. But she was surviving, demonstrating technique, showing she understood how to fight against larger opponents. The 2-minute buzzer sounded. Okonkwo had taken some hits, but remained standing unbowed. "Round 2, Hendricks announced. "Sergeant Morrison." Another large opponent. Another 2 minutes of controlled chaos. Morrison was faster than Kowalski, more technical, but Okonkwo adapted. She used the techniques Maya had taught over the past week, the ones about leverage and timing, and turning an opponent's strength against them. When the buzzer sounded, Morrison was breathing harder than she was. Final round. Hendricks paused, and something ugly flickered in his eyes. "I'll take this one myself." The gym went silent. Maya stepped forward before she could stop herself. "Master Sergeant, that's not standard protocol. Evaluators don't typically—" "I'm aware of what's typical, Lieutenant." Hendricks's voice cut like a blade. "I'm also aware that I have discretion in how I conduct my evaluations, unless you're questioning my judgment." The challenge hung in the air. Maya knew she should back down, should play the political game, should trust that Okonkwo could handle whatever came next. But she also saw the fear that had crept back into Okonkwo's eyes, saw the trap that was being laid. "I'm not questioning your judgment, Master Sergeant. I'm questioning your motives." The words landed like grenades. Every Marine in the gym drew a sharp breath. "Excuse me. Corporal Okonkwo has been denied advancement twice before, despite meeting all requirements. Now she's being evaluated by someone with a documented history of opposing women in combat roles, matched against opponents significantly larger than protocol suggests, and facing a personal challenge from the lead evaluator himself." Maya's voice stayed steady, but her eyes burned. "If that's not bias, it's a remarkable coincidence." Hendricks's face went dark red. "You're out of line, Lieutenant." "Maybe, but I'm also right." "You want to talk about right?" Hendricks stepped toward her, his massive frame radiating hostility. "Let's talk about right. Let's talk about standards that exist for reasons. Let's talk about Marines who die because someone wasn't strong enough, or fast enough, or tough enough to do the job they were assigned. Let's talk about the reality of combat, which doesn't care about your feelings or your politics or your crusade to prove that women belong where they don't. My mother died in combat, proving she belonged exactly where she was. Your mother was an exception. One exceptional woman doesn't change the rule. Then what am I? Another exception." Maya gestured at the mat where Okonkwo still stood. "Is she an exception? How many exceptions do you need before you admit the rule is wrong?" The confrontation had drawn everyone's attention. Marines watched with expressions ranging from shock to anticipation to barely concealed hope. Torres stepped forward. "Perhaps we should take a break, cool down and—" "No." Okonkwo's voice cut through the tension. Everyone turned to look at her. She walked toward Hendricks and Maya, her posture straight, her fear transformed into something fiercer. "I don't want a break. I don't want protection. I want my evaluation." She looked directly at Hendricks. "You want to test me yourself? Fine. Let's go." Hendricks's eyes narrowed. "You sure about that, Corporal? I don't go easy on anyone." "I'm counting on it." Something shifted in the room. The political standoff became something simpler, a test of capability, pure and unfiltered. Hendricks nodded slowly. "All right then. 2 minutes. Full contact. Show me what you've got." They took positions on the mat. Hendricks was 53 years old, but still dangerous decades of training compacted into a body that knew exactly how to hurt people. Okonkwo looked tiny by comparison. Fragile. The referee gave the signal. Hendricks came in hard and fast, abandoning any pretense of going easy. He threw combinations designed to overwhelm, to punish, to prove his point about women in combat. Okonkwo did something unexpected. She didn't retreat, didn't circle away, didn't try to survive. She attacked. A palm strike to his solar plexus that interrupted his combination. A low kick to his lead leg that compromised his balance. A spinning elbow that he barely blocked in time. Hendricks's eyes widened. He hadn't expected this. Hadn't prepared for someone who would meet his aggression with technique and precision rather than fear. They exchanged in the center of the mat. Hendricks landed some shots he was too experienced not to, but Okonkwo gave as good as she got. Every time he pressed forward, she made him pay. Every time he overcommitted, she countered. 30 seconds left. Hendricks was breathing hard. Okonkwo was bleeding from a cut above her eye. Neither of them backed down. Hendricks shot for a takedown, trying to use his wrestling advantage. Okonkwo sprawled, locked in a guillotine choke, squeezed with everything she had. 10 seconds left. Hendricks's face went red, then purple. He tried to posture up to escape. Okonkwo held on like her life depended on it. 5 seconds. Hendricks tapped. The buzzer sounded a moment later, but nobody cared about the buzzer. The gym had erupted in shocked murmurs and disbelieving exclamations. Okonkwo released the choke and rolled away, gasping for breath. Hendricks lay on the mat for a long moment, staring at the ceiling, processing what had just happened. Then slowly he got to his feet. The gym went silent again. Everyone waited to see what he would do, what he would say. Hendricks looked at Okonkwo, looked at Maya, looked at the Marines, watching with expressions that ranged from triumphant to terrified. "Well," he said finally, his voice hoarse from the choke. "That was unexpected." "Master Sergeant," Maya began. "I was wrong." The words fell like stones into still water. "I came here today expecting to prove something," Hendricks continued. "Expecting to show that standards matter more than politics, that physical reality trumps ideology." He shook his head slowly. "What I proved instead is that I'm an old man clinging to old assumptions." He turned to face Okonkwo directly. "Corporal, that was the best technical fighting I've seen from a brown belt candidate in 15 years. You didn't just meet the standard, you exceeded it. Substantially." Okonkwo stood frozen, unable to process what she was hearing. "You pass. Unanimously." Hendricks paused. "And I owe you an apology. I came here today with bias. You destroyed that bias with competence. That's exactly how it should work." He extended his hand. Okonkwo shook it, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you, Master Sergeant. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. And thank whoever trained you." His eyes found Maya. "Lieutenant Ishikawa, a word." They stepped away from the celebration that was erupting around Okonkwo. Marines crowded around her, offering congratulations and backslaps and expressions of genuine joy. "You called me out in front of everyone," Hendricks said quietly. "You risked your career to protect one corporal. I did what was right. You did what was dangerous. There's a difference." He studied her face. "I've been fighting against women in combat for over a decade, writing papers, testifying before committees, lobbying anyone who would listen. You know why? Because you believe women can't perform. Because I watched my daughter fail out of Marine Corps OCS and spiral into depression. Because I convinced myself that the system had failed her by letting her try something she wasn't built for." Hendricks's voice cracked slightly. "I've been projecting my guilt onto every female Marine I've encountered ever since." Maya felt something shift in her understanding. Another broken man. Another wound dressed up as hostility. "Where is your daughter now?" "She's a trauma surgeon at Johns Hopkins. Saves lives every day. Found her own path, no thanks to me." Hendricks sighed. "I've been so busy trying to protect women from failure that I never noticed I was just holding them back from success. It's not too late to change that." "No, it's not." He straightened his shoulders. "I'm going to make some calls when I get back. There are people in Washington who've been listening to my recommendations about gender integration policy. They need to hear a different recommendation." "What are you going to tell them?" "The truth, that I was wrong. That competence comes in all sizes and genders. That the best fighter I've seen in years is a corporal who weighs 130 pounds soaking wet. And the best instructor I've observed is a Navy SEAL who stands 5'3". He almost smiled. "They won't like hearing it, but they need to hear it anyway." "Thank you, Master Sergeant." "Don't thank me yet. The people pushing for rollback aren't going to give up because one old man changed his mind. There's a lot of money and power behind keeping things the way they've always been." Hendricks paused. "But every mind that changes makes the next change easier. And the mind after that. Eventually the weight of evidence becomes impossible to ignore." He walked away, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts. Across the gym, Okonkwo was surrounded by Marines celebrating her achievement. Webb was among them, his face showing genuine pride. Reyes stood slightly apart, watching with an expression that might have been tears. Torres appeared beside Maya. "That was a hell of a risk you took, Lieutenant, calling out Hendricks like that. It needed to be done." "Maybe, but there will be consequences. Hendricks has friends, powerful friends who aren't going to appreciate being proven wrong." "Then let them come." Maya's voice hardened. "I've spent my whole life dealing with consequences for being who I am. A few more won't break me." "I believe you." Torres was quiet for a moment. "Your mother would be proud. What you're building here, it's exactly what she would have wanted." "How do you know what she would have wanted?" "Because I served with her, briefly, back in 2018. Torres's eyes grew distant with memory. "She told me once that the best thing any pioneer could do was make the path easier for those who came after. Not by removing all the obstacles that would make people weak, but by proving the obstacles could be overcome, by showing what was possible." Maya felt her throat tighten. "She never told me she knew you." "We only worked together for a few weeks, but she made an impression. She made an impression on everyone she met." Torres put his hand on Maya's shoulder. "You're making the same kind of impression, Lieutenant. Building the same kind of legacy. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." That evening, Maya sat alone in her quarters, holding the photograph of her mother. The day had been a victory. Multiple victories, really. Okonkwo's promotion, Hendricks's transformation, the slow, steady work of changing minds one person at a time. But Torres was right. There would be consequences. There were always consequences for challenging systems that powerful people had invested in maintaining. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. 0600. Off base. Come alone." Maya stared at the message for a long moment. It could be a trap. Could be someone trying to intimidate her, or worse. It could also be important. She typed a response. "Where?" The reply came immediately. "Arlington Cemetery, Section 60. You'll know the spot, Section 60. Where America's recent war dead were buried. Where her mother was buried." Maya set down the phone, her heart pounding. Someone knew exactly which buttons to push, exactly how to get her attention. Tomorrow would bring answers, or more questions, or something else entirely. She looked at her mother's photograph one more time. "What would you do?" Mom, walk into the unknown or play it safe. The photograph didn't answer, but Maya already knew. Sarah Ishikawa had never played it safe in her life. Neither would her daughter. Maya arrived at Arlington Cemetery at 05:45, 15 minutes early. The morning air was cold, biting through her jacket as she walked the familiar path toward Section 60. She'd made this walk dozens of times since her mother's burial, each visit carrying its own weight of grief and memory and unfinished conversations. Today felt different. Today she walked toward uncertainty. She found her mother's headstone exactly where she'd left it. White marble among thousands of identical markers, each one representing someone who'd given everything. The inscription was simple. Master Chief Sarah Ishikawa, United States Navy SEAL, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Navy Cross. Maya knelt and touched the cold stone. I don't know who's coming, Mom, but I'm not afraid. You taught me better than that. She taught you well. Maya spun around her body, instinctively dropping into a fighting stance. A woman stood 20 feet away. Mid-60s silver hair pulled back severely, posture that screamed military even in civilian clothes. Her face was weathered, but striking, with eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. Who are you? My name is Admiral Catherine Chen, retired. The woman walked closer, her movements deliberate and controlled. I served with your mother, before she became a SEAL, before any of it. Maya's stance relaxed slightly, but she remained wary. Why contact me like this? Why the secrecy? Because what I'm about to tell you can't be said in official channels, because there are people watching you, watching everything you do at Quantico, and they're not happy about what they're seeing. Colonel Phillips mentioned something about a Pentagon review. The review is a smokescreen. The real threat is deeper. Chen stopped a few feet from Sarah's headstone and looked down at it with an expression that mixed grief with something fiercer. Your mother and I were part of the same Bud S class. Did you know that she never mentioned you? She wouldn't have. What we did together was classified. Still is, technically. Chen met Maya's eyes. We were part of a pilot program, an experiment to see if women could succeed in special operations. 6 of us started. 2 finished. Sarah and me. Maya felt the ground shift beneath her feet. I thought she was part of the 2nd female cohort. That's what all the official records say. The official records say what they were told to say. The truth is that Sarah and I proved women could do this job almost a decade before anyone acknowledged it publicly. We deployed, we fought, we bled alongside male operators who eventually accepted us as equals. Then why keep it secret? Politics, fear, the same forces that are working against you right now. Chen's voice hardened. There were powerful people who didn't want proof that women could succeed in combat. So they buried our records, classified our missions, made us disappear from history so that the next generation of women would have to fight the same battles we'd already won. Maya's hands clenched. That's why it's been so hard. Why every step forward feels like climbing a mountain. Exactly. They've been erasing evidence for decades, making sure each new group of women has to prove themselves from scratch over and over because the proof that came before was hidden. Chen stepped closer to the headstone. Sarah spent the last years of her life trying to change that, trying to expose what had been done. She was getting close. Too close. Something cold settled in Maya's chest. What are you saying? I'm saying her death wasn't random. The mission in Syria, it was supposed to be routine. Extract the hostages, eliminate the threat, go home. But someone changed the intelligence at the last minute, sent her team into a trap they weren't prepared for. You're saying she was murdered. I'm saying she was silenced. Chen's eyes burned with decades of suppressed rage. And I'm saying the same people who silenced her are now very interested in you. Maya's mind raced. Everything she'd believed about her mother's death, every story she'd been told, every official report she'd read, all of it potentially a lie. Why tell me this now? Why not years ago? Because you weren't ready years ago. Because the evidence wasn't complete. Because I needed to be certain before I destroyed everything you thought you knew about your mother's sacrifice. Chen reached into her jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. This is everything I've gathered over the last 7 years. Documents, testimonies, intelligence reports that should have been destroyed but weren't. It proves what I'm telling you. And it names the people responsible. Maya took the envelope with trembling hands. It was heavier than it looked. What do you want me to do with this? That's up to you. You can take it to investigators. You can release it to the press. You can burn it and pretend this conversation never happened. Chen's expression softened slightly. Or you can do what your mother would have done. Use it strategically. Build your case carefully. Make sure that when you strike hard enough that they can't recover. Why me? Why not handle this yourself? Because I'm 64 years old with stage 3 cancer. I'll be dead in 6 months, maybe less. Chen smiled grimly. And because you're already doing what Sarah and I could never do. You're changing minds, building evidence that can't be hidden, creating a record of success that's too public to classify or bury. Maya looked down at the envelope in her hands. The weight of it. The implications. The people watching me at Quantico. Are they dangerous? Some of them. But not all. Chen paused. There's a man named Harrison, Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel. He's been leading the effort to roll back gender integration for almost a decade. He was one of the people who pushed to have your mother's early records classified, and he's very interested in making sure you fail. Harrison. Maya committed the name to memory. What's his angle? Defense contracts. There are billions of dollars tied up in equipment and training programs designed for male-only combat units. Gender integration threatens those contracts, threatens the companies that depend on them, threatens the politicians those companies support. Chen shook her head. It was never about capability. It was always about money and power. Maya felt something crystallize inside her. Not just anger, though there was plenty of that, but clarity. Purpose. They killed my mother to protect their profits. They killed your mother because she was going to expose them, because she had proof that women had been succeeding in combat for years while they'd been lying to Congress and the public about it being impossible. Chen put her hand on Maya's shoulder. You're carrying her fight now, whether you want to or not. I want to. Then be smart. Be patient. Build your case the way she was building hers, methodically, carefully, with evidence that can't be disputed or dismissed. And Chen squeezed her shoulder. And watch your back. They've killed before. They'll kill again if they feel threatened enough. How do I contact you if I need help? You don't. After today I'm going underground. Disappearing. Chen smiled sadly. But I've arranged for allies to find you when you need them. People who worked with your mother. People who believe in what she was trying to do. They'll reach out when the time is right. This is a lot to process. I know. And I'm sorry to drop it on you like this. But time is running out for me and for the window of opportunity your work at Quantico has created. Chen stepped back. The Marines you're training, the minds you're changing, the evidence you're building, it's all part of something bigger than you realize. Your mother started this work decades ago. You're going to finish it. She turned and walked away, disappearing among the rows of white headstones, before Maya could think of anything else to say. Maya stood alone beside her mother's grave, holding an envelope full of secrets, and a burden heavier than anything she'd ever carried. "Mom," she whispered, "why didn't you tell me?" The wind answered with silence. Maya drove back to Quantico in a daze, the envelope sitting on the passenger seat like a bomb waiting to explode. Her mind kept cycling through everything Chen had told her. The secret program, the buried records, the conspiracy that had possibly led to her mother's death. By the time she reached the base, she'd made a decision. She wouldn't open the envelope. Not yet. Not until she'd finished what she started here. The Marines needed her focused. The training program needed her committed. She couldn't let decades-old secrets derail the present-day work that was already changing things. The envelope would wait. The truth would wait. But not forever. She walked into the training center to find something unexpected. Every Marine in the program was assembled. Webb stood at the front with Torres, both of them looking unusually serious. And in the center of the formation, standing at attention, was Corporal Okonkwo, wearing her new brown belt. "Lieutenant on deck," Torres called out. The Marines snapped to attention with a precision that made Maya's chest tighten. "At ease." She walked toward the front of the formation, her eyes scanning the faces. Something was happening. Something she hadn't anticipated. Webb stepped forward. "Lieutenant Ishikawa, the Marines of the Advanced Combat Training Program would like to present something." "Present what?" Torres produced a small wooden box and handed it to Webb. "When you arrived here 2 weeks ago, we thought we knew what combat looked like, what strength looked like, what leadership looked like." Webb's voice was thick with emotion. "We were wrong. About all of it." He opened the box. Inside was a challenge coin, the kind military units created to honor exceptional service. This one bore the SEAL trident on one side and the Marine Corps emblem on the other intertwined. "We had this made special. It's never been done before, a joint SEAL Marine challenge coin, because what you've built here is something that's never been done before." Webb held the coin out to her. "On behalf of every Marine in this program, we want you to know that you've earned our respect, our loyalty, and our commitment to carrying forward what you've taught us." Maya took the coin. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were not. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything, ma'am." Okonkwo stepped forward. "You showed us what's possible. Now let us show you what we've learned." The Marines moved into formation on the training mat, all 80 of them moving together with a synchronization that spoke to hours of practice. They began moving through techniques, the ones Maya had taught, the ones she'd learned from Master Yamamoto, the ones her mother had helped develop decades ago. The demonstration lasted 10 minutes. When it ended, Maya realized her face was wet with tears. "That was beautiful," she managed. "That was you, ma'am," Reyes said. "Everything we just did that came from you." Maya looked at the Marines assembled before her, saw the changes that had happened in just 2 weeks. Webb transformed from bitter enemy to committed ally. Reyes redirecting his grief into mentorship. Okonkwo wearing her brown belt with the pride of someone who'd earned it against every obstacle. And she thought about Chen's words, about the bigger picture, about her mother's work spanning decades waiting to be completed. "I need to tell you all something," Maya said. The gym went silent. "I came here expecting to teach you techniques, combat skills, physical capabilities." She paused. "What I found instead was something more important. I found people who were hurting, people who were carrying pain they didn't know how to put down. People who'd been told certain things about themselves and others that weren't true, and who believed those things because no one had shown them otherwise." She walked among them as she spoke, meeting eyes acknowledging the journey each of them had made. "In 2 weeks, you've proven that minds can change, that hearts can change, that people who start as enemies can become allies when they're given the chance to see truth instead of assumption." She stopped at the center of the formation. That's what combat is really about. Not the physical techniques, those are just tools. Combat is about breaking through limitations, shattering expectations, becoming more than anyone believed you could be. She held up the challenge coin they'd given her. I'm going to carry this with me for the rest of my career. Not because I earned it, but because you earned it. Because you chose to change. Because you chose to be better. Her voice strengthened. And I need you to keep choosing that, every day, every interaction, every time someone tells you that certain people can't do certain things because of their gender or their size or their background. I need you to remember what happened here. Remember what you saw. Remember what you learned. Webb spoke up. We will, ma'am. We promise. Good. Because the work doesn't end when I leave Quantico. The work continues wherever you go, whatever you do, whoever you meet. You're carriers now. Carriers of a different way of thinking. A different way of seeing. Maya smiled. My mother used to say that the best thing any pioneer could do was make the path easier for those who came after. Not by removing obstacles, but by proving they could be overcome. That's what you're going to do. That's the legacy you're going to carry. Torres stepped forward. Lieutenant, there's one more thing. What's that, Master Gunnery Sergeant? Colonel Phillips called this morning. The Pentagon review, the one looking at gender integration. Torres paused. They've decided to use our program as the model, the gold standard. Whatever you've built here in 2 weeks, they want to replicate it across every combat training facility in the military. Maya felt the words hit her like a physical blow. This was bigger than she'd imagined. Bigger than one program at one base. This was everything her mother had fought for. Everything she'd died for. When does implementation begin? They want you to lead it, starting next month. Full authority to redesign training protocols across all branches. Torres's weathered face cracked into a rare smile. You did it, Lieutenant. You changed the whole damn system. The Marines erupted into cheers. Webb grabbed Maya's hand and shook it with both of his. Okonkwo was crying openly, hugging everyone within reach. Reyes stood apart, but he was smiling, really smiling for the first time since Maya had met him. Later, after the celebration had died down and the gym had emptied, Maya stood alone in the center of the mat where everything had started. 2 weeks ago, she'd walked into this space facing 8 hostile Marines who wanted to prove she didn't belong. Now she was being asked to reshape combat training for the entire United States military. She pulled out the envelope Chen had given her, held it for a long moment. Not yet, she whispered. But soon. She had work to do first, systems to change, minds to open, a military to transform. And when that work was far enough along that it couldn't be stopped, when the evidence of women's capability was so overwhelming that no amount of classified records or buried reports could deny it, then she would open the envelope. Then she would finish what her mother started. Then the people who'd killed Sarah Ishikawa would learn exactly what they'd created by silencing her. They'd created something they couldn't silence, something they couldn't stop, something that would dismantle everything they'd built to keep women out of combat. They'd created her daughter. Maya touched the challenge coin in her pocket, felt the weight of it, the meaning. She thought about Master Yamamoto, who'd taught her that karate wasn't about violence, it was about control, about discipline, about becoming more than you were. She thought about her mother who'd spent her entire life proving that excellence knew no gender, no size, no limitation except the ones people imposed on themselves. She thought about Webb and Reyes and Okonkwo and all the Marines who'd changed in just 2 weeks, who'd proven that minds could shift when given the chance. And she thought about all the women who would come after her, all the ones who would walk through doors she was opening, all the ones who would never have to fight the battles she'd fought because she'd fought them first. That was the real victory. Not the 8 Marines she'd defeated in sequential combat. Not the challenge coin in her pocket. Not even the Pentagon mandate to reshape military training. The real victory was the path she was clearing, the legacy she was building, the truth she was making impossible to ignore. Maya walked out of the training center into bright morning sunlight. Somewhere her mother was watching. Somewhere Admiral Chen was disappearing into her final months, knowing the torch had been passed. Somewhere Undersecretary Harrison was reading reports about Quantico with growing alarm, not yet understanding that his decades of cover-ups were about to unravel. And here on this base, in this moment, Maya Ishikawa was exactly where she needed to be. Ready to train, ready to teach, ready to transform, ready to prove once and for all that competence was the only standard that mattered. She'd challenged them to 1 round. She'd beaten them in 8. And now she was going to change everything. Not because she was trying to prove women belonged in combat, but because she already knew they did, and the world was finally going to see it too. Control and discipline. Master Yamamoto had taught her. That is the only true way. Her mother had lived those words, had died for them. Now Maya would carry them forward, into every training facility, into every combat unit, into every mind that had been taught to limit what women could achieve. The challenge wasn't over. It was just beginning. And Maya Ishikawa was ready.